Hi there. Welcome to the second revision session for A2. For those of you who weren't here last week, my name's Alec Thomas and I'm from Tinlows High School. I also do the AS sessions. I've got about sort of 10, 11, like 12, maybe 12 years of teaching experience in a range of different settings, teaching business studies. So I'm hoping I can bring a bit of experience to give you sort of a bit of help towards your revision. So what we managed to do last lesson was give you a bit of outline of what really the course is and the kind of way you should be learning it. And then we started to look at Unit 3. Now, the plan would be to try and finish off Unit 3 today. There's quite a lot of stuff to cover. Okay, so I'm going to sort of gloss over some of the stuff that is probably a little bit more straightforward. Okay, so we can kind of get to that point. So last two sessions can be concentrating on Unit 4, looking at some of the exam work as well. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my PowerPoint now with you guys. Okay, so the point at which we got to last lesson was we were looking at the how we evaluate financial performance. Okay, I talked to you about the things you needed to look at: the working capital, current assets minus current liabilities, the gearing ratio, current ratio, asset test ratio, gross profit margin, net profit margin, and return on capital employed. We also had an opportunity to sort of look a little bit at how we put together those different documents, profit and loss account or income statement and balance sheets. We also looked at depreciation. Okay, so what you might have to do in your exams is, again, I touched upon this last time, was you might have to compare it to similar businesses, compare it to maybe previous years. Okay, all right. But you also might have to look at the case study and make a comment upon how the business is doing compared to maybe how the economic environment doing, or maybe how that market is doing. One final thing to consider is, do you think the accounts have been window dressed? So I'm going to kind of go through this now. Okay, now, this sounds relatively complicated, really, okay, what window dressing is, but basically it's the manipulation of accounts to make them look slightly better, okay? So there are different rules and regulations on how you have to present accounts, okay? So some people can kind of go about manipulating that and putting things in different places to make the business appear more profitable than it maybe is. And this is basically the job of an accountant, okay, to make your business look pretty profitable, and we'll look at reasons why we go about doing that now. So ways they can do that, okay, is overstating brand value. Okay, so brand value is relatively subjective to the business, how much they believe their brand to be worth. Okay, and they can put that down as an asset, and that can manipulate how much the business is actually worth. What some businesses do also is they sell assets and then lease them back. Okay, so and then they list that as revenue as well. Okay, and you can just sort of see how their costs are minimized through the lease back opportunity. Okay, and then the final three, okay, is basically just how they present and where they put various items within the accounts. So the high poor investments, poor business decisions in different as sort of costs within the business, where actually that's not what it should be. So all you really need to understand, okay, is how business can manipulate their accounts, okay, in order for them to appear better. Why do they do that? Okay, well, they might do it to try and improve their share price. Okay, so make themselves look more more profitable, so more people are going to invest in them. Okay, to encourage takeovers because they think they're a very profitable business. Okay, maybe managers will do it in order to impress their shareholders. Okay, the big one is reducing taxes. Okay, I trained doing accounting and finance, and a lot of my friends from the course, their basically whole job is to try and reduce tax as much as possible. Okay, so reducing how much net profit a business makes in order for them to pay less corporation tax. Okay, also trying to improve their credit ratings to make them more credit worthy, so they can maybe borrow more money. Okay, so like the example there, overstating brand value, stating it as an asset, they'll be able to sort of maybe borrow more money based upon the assets that they believe they have. Okay. Now, we can also, so we've looked basically this whole section of work that we finished off last time, just started today, okay, is, looked at financial aspects, sort of numerical documents like profit and loss accounts, balance sheets, okay, to analyze the performance of the business, okay. But there are various other things that we can have a look at, okay, that you might have taken into consideration if you're ever commenting on a business in an exam, okay. So you're going to look at their financial documents, but maybe within the case study there'll be things talking about they have got a increasing or decreasing market share, they are not reaching their sales targets, they are being productive, or maybe being reputation based by the fact that their customers are happy, they're not having too much impact upon the environment, the quality of their products are high and customers are happy because of that, okay, that their employees are happy and well motivated, or maybe even possibly the opposite of that, okay, because what basically the financial documents do, or the purpose of financial documents is you look at them and you go, these are questions that I have, and you look into it. Okay, so if revenue has dropped, or costs of sales have increased, or you're spending much more on overheads, okay, or your current liabilities have increased. The documents actually only tell you so much. As an accountant or a sort of financial analyst or a manager, you would have to look into all that, okay? So almost every sort of financial transaction will be able to tell you a story, okay? And you won't have to do that at sort of the level you're at, okay? You'll get a financial document, okay, and you'll get a case study, and basically they'll be looking for you to sort of be able to pick something out and go, this is a question I want to ask, and this is what the case study says about that, okay? So some of the stuff they might tell you in the case study in the exam, okay, is going to sort of counteract maybe a point that you've picked up through your analysis, okay? Hopefully we'll get to the point where we can do some examples of that a little bit later on. Okay, next one, there's a sort of basically a next two sections of stuff, okay, is going to be on aims and objectives and strategies and things like that, okay? So the key terms of this one, we're looking at vision statements, we're looking at aims and objectives, we're looking at SMART objectives, and we're looking at mission statements, okay? So what is a mission statement? Basically, it's sort of a medium to long term, sort of almost a strategic way of how the business is going to be guided, okay? It's going to help senior management make decisions, okay, in where to sort of guide the business. Okay, so maybe where the business sees itself in a few years' time, where they want to get to. Okay, so it's medium to long term. Probably we're talking maybe 3 to 5 years. But the vision statements, what you remember is there's no set style, no set format, maybe even no set particular length for them. Okay, they can be relatively specific, or they can be extremely vague. Okay, and if you have a look at past papers and you look at some of the vision statements, they actually look at one of the main criticisms you can give about them is that they are very vague vision statements, and they're not really measurable things that they're looking to achieve. Okay, but some are very good, some are very vague. So what's good about them? Okay, so it helps set a vision where they're going. Okay, it helps guide some decisions and helps sort of communicate to employees and to potentially customers how they're going to improve. Okay, and also helps various decision making about how it's going to apply its resources, be it human resources, production resources, and so on, in order to achieve sort of their overall vision statement. Now, a mission statement, okay, is a bit more day to day than a vision statement. Vision statement is sort of, we're looking medium to long term, okay, whereas a mission statement is more of a sort of day to day, how they're going to go about doing their everyday operations, what decisions they're going to be making, okay, which is what mission statements and vision statements, how they are different. Vision statements more long term, mission statements is more of a sort of day to day kind of thing, okay. So if you're looking at about it in terms of a structure, organizational structure of the business, the sort of CEO, high level managers will be concerned with the vision statement of where the business is going. The mission statement would be what you are trying to achieve kind of on your day-to-day basis. Okay, so maybe if you're thinking about, you know, one that you see on a day-to-day basis, which would be a sort of a school, your head teacher would probably be looking at where the school is going to be guided, and I would have written a relatively long vision statement of how the school is going to achieve. We'd probably call it something like a school improvement plan in education. Okay, but then there is a sort of a way to help sort of guide teachers and what they're going to do. So maybe your school has something like a motto like potential into reality, or giving opportunities for all to learn, or something along those lines, or and that will help guide teachers on what kind of things they need to be doing in their classes to be teaching you. So that would be kind of the difference between the two. Okay. And reason why businesses have this, it just provides clarity. Okay, all the different stakeholders kind of understand what they should be doing. Okay, on the day-to-day basis, helps investors see, how their money is going to be used, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay, and helps customers understand really what the sort of the ethics of the company are. What are they all about, basically? What's their vibe, if we're using that kind of language? Okay. Business aims and objectives, real quick, because you've probably done this at GCSE, real easy. Okay, aim is your sort of overall goal. Okay, and business and objectives are going to be the steps to take it. So the example would be for you as people, your aim might be to become a doctor. All right, and then the objectives are the steps that you're going to take in order to do that. Okay, so business will have a range of different. We'll have an aim for a business relatively broad, and then steps how are they going to go about achieving that. The type of things that businesses want to try and achieve is survive in the first year, maximizing their profit, maximizing their sales, to grow and expand their business, increase shareholder value, maybe something to do with environment or ethics, or looking after the community. Okay, any ones of those. And hopefully you've touched upon SMART objectives at some point during your school career. It comes up in a lot of other subjects, but what we mean by SMART is it's specific, so it's to the point. It's not wishy-washy like get good grades or something like that. Okay, it's very specific. Okay, then you've got it measurable. Okay, so basically you want to be able to see, are you able to pass or fail it? Okay, so instead of saying get good grades, what you would do is, I want to achieve 3 A levels at B grades. Okay, well, that if you have 2 B's and a C, you haven't achieved that objective. Okay, if you get 2 B's and an A, you've overachieved that objective. Okay, then you've got achievable and realistic. Okay, I think they kind of mean the same. I think it was just quite cool for them to maybe get one that sounded smart, like SMART. So achievable and realistic, can they do it? Okay, so if you were doing objectives for your A levels, you wouldn't say I want 15 A levels at A star grade. Well, that wouldn't be achievable or realistic for most people. Okay, then you've also got to set a time on it. Okay, so like the example, okay, so get 3 A levels at B grade, okay, and you set a sort of a time on that. So yours would be by by summer 2022. Okay, because if you left that open, I'm sure all of us, if we continue to study throughout our lives, we would be able to achieve those 3 Bs. Okay, same with the business. Okay, if they left their objectives open-ended, they could spend forever trying to get to them, and most of the time they would end up achieving them, but they need to be given the time to do that. Okay, right, moving on, strategy and implementation. Okay, so what we're looking at in this section of work builds upon kind of the last unit. Okay, so we're looking at relationship between objectives and strategy, the meaning of corporate strategy, strategic direction, divisional strategy, and functional strategy, which is probably what I'll pause most on. Okay, purpose of how to apply a SWOT. Okay, what's been taken out of this unit is Porter's 5 forces, which is probably the most difficult part of this section of work. So it's kind of quite good news that it's been taken out. Okay. So business objectives, these are the key terms again. Okay, business objectives and strategy. Okay, so strategy is basically how it operates in order to achieve its aims and objectives. There's 2 sides to it. Okay, first one is formulation and the other one is implementation. Basically, if I was going to compare that to anything, your strategy is going to be your business plan. Okay, and the second part of how you end up putting that into practice. Okay, so what we've got here, okay, is the different levels of strategy, how they go about achieving their objective. Okay, so the first level is, and your highest level, okay, if you're looking at your top of your organizational structure, okay, is your corporate strategy. Okay, so what's the strategy of the business? Okay, what it's trying to achieve. Almost very similar to maybe like kind of like a vision statement or whatever, but it's basically we're looking at what is our business aiming to achieve. Okay, all right. The strategic direction is the action that's going to that people are going to take in order to be able to achieve that corporate strategy. Okay, all right. Divisional strategy goes down a level. So divisional, you might have come across a term like functional area, divisional area. Okay, basically this is we're going down to sort of a functional department level where we're looking at, you know, the heads of different departments, heads of marketing, heads of HR, heads of finance. Okay, and what decisions they're going to take in order that ties in to their how they're going to achieve their corporate strategy. Okay, then your functional level strategy, okay, is basically the decisions that almost your individual workers take that sort of tie in and feed into the overall company business. So it could simply be individual goal setting, okay, for individual employees, that ties into the overall corporate strategy. Okay, so these have all got to kind of be in synergy. They've all got to kind of be working towards the same direction in order for you to sort of maximize your business's possibilities. Okay. A SWOT analysis model, again, I don't want to pause too long on this one because you probably would have come across it in many other units or when you were doing your Welsh back or whatever. Okay, so SWOT, what it stands for: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Okay, now your strengths and weaknesses are what you have internally. Okay, so what are you good at, what are you not so good at, or what do you need to improve, okay, in order for you to do your business to be successful. Okay, and then you've got external things that you can't really control. Okay, so what opportunities are there? Okay, is the stage of the economic cycle something that is good for you? Is there, you know, some new health kick for your business that is going to help you? Okay, maybe some new government legislation that is going to help your business. Okay, and then there's threats. Okay, so threats could be maybe competition, entering the market, or it can be new legislation that harms your business. Okay, anything like that. Okay, so just remember, strength and weakness is internal, opportunities and threats are your external factors. Okay, so almost your controllables and your non-controllables. Okay, right, moving on. Okay, we're still kind of in the same ballpark of strategy and implementation. Okay, so there's quite a lot of stuff on this one, okay, but quite a bit of it you would have probably touched upon in GCSE. Okay, we're going to start off with looking at the ANSOF matrix, which is something that we haven't really, you wouldn't have studied at any level at GCSE. Okay, and then we're going to have a look at just touching upon again different types of integration. So we're talking internal and external, so mergers, takeovers, acquisitions. Okay, difference between backward, vertical, so vertical and horizontal integration as well. Okay, looking at franchising, rationalization has been taken out, so you haven't got to study that. Okay, we also need to look at business location and what is meant by outsourcing and offshoring and things like that. Okay, these are your key terms. Okay, these are the things that I think you need to make sure you have a good grasp of in this unit. So this is a picture of the ANSOF matrix. Okay, and what you've got on each axis, you've got markets on one side and you've got products on the other axis. Okay, so if we have a look at this, right, so if we look at the top left hand corner, what we've got is market penetration. Okay, so what that is all about is, you know, maximizing your potential of your existing products in your existing markets. Okay, so basically you're just trying to almost sort of improve what you've got internally and trying to sort of increase maybe your market share, increase your sales with the existing products that you've got within your existing markets. Okay, if you move to the top right hand side, okay, basically what you're doing is you're trying to develop new products in existing markets that you're already in. Okay, all right, so you're trying to develop new ideas or improve maybe old ones, okay? And you basically just want to sort of develop brand new products, okay, in existing markets, okay. And then if we go in the bottom left hand side, okay, what you've got there is you've got existing products, okay, in new markets, okay. So this can be a geographical thing where maybe you decide that you're going to sell your product abroad, okay. That is new, products that you currently have in brand new markets, okay. Or essentially you can do market development of selling existing products in brand new markets. I'll give you an example of that. So, and I use this example with the children I teach quite a lot. If you consider Lucozade, Lucozade as a drink that you have, okay. So when I was a child, okay, it was something that your parents used to give you when you were not feeling very well, okay. It would give you energy and generally make you feel a little bit better. And all the marketing advertising was kind of that, like when you need a boost, take Lucozade or whatever and stuff like that. But with development of kind of good quality over-the-counter medication, okay, Lucozade's sales started to fall, okay. So in their existing market, their existing product was starting to fall, okay. So they decided to reposition their product, okay, and they decided to start selling an existing product in a brand new sort of sports market, okay. So I remember a switch when I was about sort of 12, 13 years old, okay, that all their advertising now was concentrated on, there was people running around a track, they were drinking this drink, and they were going like 33% longer. The product was exactly the same, okay. They did sort of like put out a sort of brand new sort of not so fizzy version of Lucozade as well, okay, but it's basically the same product still, okay. And so what they've done is taken the existing product and put it in a brand new market. Point I'm trying to make is it doesn't always have to be a new geographical location of market. The other one is you're looking at diversification, the bottom right hand side. So basically you've come up with new products and putting them in new markets, okay. So almost, both of them are new to you, okay. So you often, if you're coming from mid Wales here, you hear a lot about this diversification because we are very lot of agricultural land around here, and farmers are being forced to diversify. So they're used to sort of just using their land for cows, and cows and sheep and whatever. They are their existing products, and that's their existing market. Okay. However, what they're doing now is they're using those fields and maybe putting up like glamping pods or whatever. Okay. So they're now working using sort of essentially brand new products, which is glamping or chalets as opposed to cows and sheep, so brand new products, okay. And in new markets, they're working in the tourism holiday sector, okay. So that's how they diversified. So that's an example of that one, okay. Relatively straightforward. That aspect. Ansoff matrix looks complicated, but I think a little bit of revision on that, and I think that should be quite a straightforward explanation in your exam if a question comes up on that. Okay, methods of growth. You would have come across this in GCSE, okay, but basically you've got internal, which sometimes is called organic, okay. So when a firm grows without involving other businesses, okay, so they're using their own retained profit or their existing revenue that they've made in order to expand, okay. Externally, okay, so two businesses join, okay, so they can do that through a merger, okay, where two businesses join together, or a takeover or an acquisition where they take over another business, okay. Now, if we concentrate upon merger and takeovers and how they go about that, okay, so if you concentrate closely upon where it says Nescafe on there, okay, all right, now Nescafe is would be a secondary business, kind of a manufacturing one, okay, where it's sort of extracted the raw materials of the coffee beans, okay, and now is packaging them ready for retail, okay, so they are that sort of second stage of it, okay. Now Nescafe, if they wanted to expand, what they could do is they could choose to do it organically or internally use their retained profit to expand. However, what they could do is they could choose to take over another business, okay, in the same sector, in the same industry, Okay, so what we would do is Nescafe could take over Kenco. Okay, both do the same things, and what that would do, that would increase their market share. Okay, and get rid of a competitor, and we call that horizontal integration. Okay, it goes horizontally. Okay, so that's what we call that one. All right, let's go back to Nescafe now. Okay, looking at that diagram, and what we've got is we've got a primary sector business, which is your coffee farm. Okay, and then you've got a tertiary sector business, which is your Costa coffee shops. Okay, so if what Nescafe could do to expand is they could take over a coffee farm. Now this wouldn't increase their market share, because their market share would be based upon Nescafe and Kenco and other sort of coffee manufacturers. Okay, but what this taking over this coffee farm would do is it would sort of guarantee them maybe cheap raw materials or a cheap supplier. Okay, and when you go backwards, say from secondary to primary or tertiary to secondary, okay, what we call that is backwards vertical integration. Okay, so going backwards in the stages of the economy. Okay, and then if you go back to Nescafe now and look forward, okay, to Costa coffee shops, what they've done there is they've taken over a guaranteed retail outlet. Okay, so someone who's guaranteed going to sort of buy their manufacturing products, okay, or they've got at least a guaranteed outlet for their products they've manufactured, and we call that forwards vertical. Okay, so it's moving vertically backwards or forwards, okay, depending on what they choose. Now, if you look at the big arrow that goes across the H&M from Nescafe, okay, what we call that is conglomerate integration. Now, you've probably heard the word conglomerate before, okay, about maybe these big multinational businesses, these large conglomerates they use. Basically, a lot of them are just big umbrella companies that own a lot of different brands, okay, that are in different industries, different sectors, okay, and it's used to kind of like spread risk, and they're just basically trying to buy up, you know, profitable businesses or business they can sell off their assets, or you know, any ones of those reasons. Okay, so what Nescafe might do is choose to take over H&M. Now H&M are in a completely different industry, completely different sector to those, okay, but would increase their, you know, their brand range, okay, and spread risk. So that's the different kinds of mergers and takeovers, okay, that you need to have a look at, okay, and have an understanding of, and have a good grasp of those, okay, and use terms like backwards vertical, forwards vertical, conglomerates, horizontal integration. Okay, now what the problems basically of mergers and takeovers. Okay, so you might see some job losses because of duplicate jobs. Okay, and doesn't always have a desired impact. Okay, so often when two companies merge or are taken over by the other one, they look at the two sets of accounts and go, they project that this is going to happen and this is what it's going to be real good. However, they don't maybe take into consideration the different kind of cultures that the two businesses have. Okay, so maybe if they merged your school and your rival school, well, both of you maybe have very different kind of people who go to that school, and the two different cultures maybe wouldn't mesh particularly well. Okay, mergers and takeovers often come with a little bit of uncertainty as well. Okay, so managers can see this as a threat. Okay, and this can lead to bad morale. You know, all you've got to do is watch. If you ever watch the British version of The Office, okay, the end of the first series is basically them having to merge with another branch. See how the manager behaves during that, and how the staff act and worry about their jobs during this time. Okay, and that kind of will show my point. Okay, I'm not saying watch The Office as revision. Okay, but if you're quietly at the end of the night and you want to do some watch some TV, but also maybe keep your brain engaged with business, put on the last couple of episodes of series 1 of the British Office, and maybe this will emphasize what I'm trying to say to you. Okay, reasons for mergers and takeovers. Why do they happen? I've touched upon a few of these. Increased market share. With increased market share comes increased market power, and you can become a price maker. Okay, you want to diversify your market, spread risks. Okay, you want to benefit from economies of scale, so the benefits of becoming larger, getting access to better quality technology, marketing economies of scale, be able to sort of borrow more money. Okay. Saving on average costs, getting rid of maybe poor staff, okay, and ultimately, hopefully lead to higher profits and ultimately higher returns to shareholders, okay. Right, the next one is franchising. Okay, you probably would have touched upon franchising, and you probably would have heard of franchises. So we're talking Burger King, KFC, McDonald's, Domino's. So a lot of these are franchises. Okay, there is a really good video on franchises on YouTube. It's got Greg James on it. Okay, so if you sort of went, I think it's by the BBC Learn franchises. It's a real sort of good quality video. Greg James at Dashbury Festival and using Wall's ice cream as an example. Okay, so basically what it is a franchise company or a franchisor, okay, gives the license for franchisees to operate under their sort of branding, their name. Okay, now what the franchisee will do is they will pay them sort of percentage of profit or a fee in order to be able to do this. Okay, now this, example I always use would be if you had a certain amount of money and you decided that you wanted to open a burger restaurant. Okay, would it be better to maybe sort of develop your own one so you've got more control over what is on the menu and what your advertising is going to be, or are you better off using an established name, guaranteed sales, guaranteed customers, okay, but you're gonna have to give a percentage of your profits away, and you haven't got a lot of control over what your business is going to look like. Okay, so that's a decision that you make, but it's a relatively risk-free way for the franchisor in order to expand. But obviously the downside of that is they start to lose an element of control. Okay, and if one franchise is bad, okay, that impacts the rest of them. Okay, so I know, for example, in the town that I live in, which is a place called Newtown in mid Wales, the KFC has been real poor here, and it's run by it's an individual franchisee who runs it. Okay, but it has tarnished almost everybody's opinions of KFC in this town. Okay, whereas maybe if you went somewhere else, the KFC would be fine. I've been to other KFCs and they're great, but this one in Newtown has been particularly poor. It's actually shut down now and become a Burger King instead. That's by the by. Advantages, okay, you can have fast growth, you can benefit from bulk buying, and sort of increase income from franchise fees for franchises. Okay, however, there is a loss of control on both sides. Okay, so for the franchisor, the person who's sort of selling a license can't really control what's going on in individual stores, but also the franchisees have less control maybe where the business is going to go. Okay, you don't get to keep all the profits. Okay, and loss of reputation if they are unprofessional. Okay, also if growth happens too fast, they can suffer from diseconomies of scale, which is difficulty of becoming large too quick. So maybe bad morale, not feeling connected to the business, poor communication. Okay, right. Next one, what affects a business location or relocation? Okay, for regional or international, there is a bit of a difference. Okay, so if you're looking for sort of where to put your business regionally, you want to consider access to markets, cost, the factors of production, so land, labour and capital in that area. Why you might be there due to sort of social or historical reasons. Maybe that region has been historically good for the type of industry you want to work in. Okay, what impacts international location? Maximize economies of scale. Okay, maybe being close to raw materials, you can get access to brand new markets. There might be cheaper taxes in certain international locations. Okay, maybe you are currently operating in a country where there might be a lot of rules and regulations. Okay, well, you can go to a country where there might be a bit looser on how you dump your toxic waste, or maybe how much you have to pay your staff. Okay, so we're kind of talking about costs there. Footloose businesses, okay, so basically maybe want to sort of go from one country to another. Okay, sometimes referred to as race to the bottom, so basically trying to find the cheapest possible wages, okay, and a less amount of restrictions for businesses. Okay, so some businesses like to sort of flee from one country to another in order to take advantage of various things. Okay, could also be tax breaks that they're trying to maximize as well. Okay. Other forms of expansion we're talking about is outsourcing. Okay, so basically where a company, instead of taking part in the entire supply chain or the manufacturing process, they outsource certain aspects of it. So maybe Nike would outsource the manufacturing of their t-shirts or their trainers or their whatever else they make. Okay, so Nike, they're not made in a Nike factory, they're made basically by a supplier. Okay, now this means that the people who work within that outsourcing manufacturing don't directly work for Nike, they work for a company that supplies Nike. Okay, now you might come across a term called offshoring. Okay, now that is different to outsourcing. Okay, offshoring is basically where the firm would open up their own manufacturing place. So let's say Nike open up their own manufacturing outlet abroad. Okay, that's called offshoring. Okay, but outsourcing is basically where you outsource your work for someone else to do for you. Okay, now there can be various advantages and disadvantages of taking part in outsourcing. Okay, so basically you're not taking so much risk, you're not paying so much staff. Okay, you're going to benefit from maybe lower costs. Okay, you're not taking on the stress of doing all the work. Okay, and hopefully these lower costs are going to increase profit. However, the disadvantages, and this is what a lot of companies have found, is that when you start to sort of deal with sort of a long supply chain, so let's say Nike, we'll use that same example, have outsourced to their factory the making of t-shirts, right? Now, in order for them to maybe get the cotton further on down the supply chain, they might have used child labor in order to pick that cotton. Okay, well, Nike haven't directly employed a child, but their reputation basically, well, you will say Nike uses children to make their products. Okay, well, that's where problems with outsourcing rise, maybe where you look further on down the supply chain, and that can impact the reputation of the business. Okay, you might not get the same level of quality that you did if you were sort of having it you imagine yourself. Okay, it's difficult to implement certain systems, you have maybe less control on delivery times. Okay, like so communication might be difficult. Okay, so there's a few there. Okay, the advantages, disadvantages of outsourcing as a method of expanding. So moving on, so we can sort of try and wrap most of this up by the end of this session. Okay, decision-making models. Quite a lot of here taken out. Okay, so probably some of the most difficult stuff. Critical path analysis, very difficult, so we're glad that's been taken out. Decision trees, difficult, glad that's been taken out. So only really what we're looking at here is scientific decision making, cost benefit analysis. Okay, and IT used in it. Okay, so first of all, we talk about, and we touched upon these already, so I don't want to sort of dredge too much on this, but strategic decisions made by senior management, tactical made by middle management, operational by junior management, and basically you can use these decision-making models to guide any strategic, tactical, operational decision they want to try and do. Okay, so what's a scientific approach? How do we go about this? Right, so clearly identifying the objective problem to solve, collect all the relevant information needed to make a decision, analyze the information, make and implement decision, and then monitor and review. It's basically constant sort of review and feedback what the decision is going to impact. Okay, so the first one is cost benefit analysis. Now, you probably came across some of this when you're doing your GCSEs. Okay, So what you have to do often when you are thinking about running a government project, so they often use cost benefit analysis. They're looking at the private costs and benefits. Okay, so the costs felt by sort of the business that are sort of maybe undertaking the project, and what are going to be the sort of the public cost and benefits. Sometimes we call these the external costs or the external benefits. Okay. If we look at this model here, okay, so what we have to do when we're looking at any particular sort of project, you know, that you're going to run, okay, particularly if you're sort of government based, you need to look at, first of all, we look at what are going to be the private cost of doing this. So what are going to be the costs of building or doing or whatever. Okay, all right. Then we need to consider the public costs. So what's going to impact people that aren't involved in these transactions? Okay, what's going to be the impact upon congestion, on traffic pollution, impact to the environment. So any sort of, you know, any noise pollution, so any sort of externality, okay, that impacts someone that has got nothing to do with that transaction. Okay, and we'll get on to sort of the difficulties on that a little bit later on. Okay, and when we look at those two different kinds of costs, we come with a figure for social costs. Okay, so we look on the other side then. Okay, we look at the private benefits. So what is the sort of the business involved in transaction going to get from it? Okay, and then we look at the public benefits. So what are the people who aren't involved in transaction going to benefit from it? Is it improved services? Is it maybe more jobs? Okay, so things that the public are going to benefit from. Okay, and then we add those two together and we get social benefits. Now, if the social benefits are higher than the social cost, then the project is worth running with. Okay, if the social costs are higher, okay, than the social benefits, then often the project won't go ahead. Now, the problem with all of this, okay, is that it's real difficult to put a value on a lot of this. How much value can you really put upon this is how much congestion is going to cost? This is how much the traffic congestion, the noise pollution. Okay, this is the financial impact of it. Okay, it sounds very difficult and very subjective of how you put a value upon all this. Okay, to sort of come up with a value of saying this is much better than it is worse. Okay, so cost benefit analysis is a great thing to do. Okay, because it helps you look at what's going to be good and what's bad about each project. Okay, however, it's difficult to put a sort of valuation on what all these are going to cost in terms of their benefits and their sort of the downsides to it almost. Okay. ICT, okay, can be used to make decisions. Okay, so there's a lot of different software out there from many different industries. Okay, they're able to sort of produce loads of information about decisions that you take. Okay, so it could be you deal with some of these kind of things on a daily basis. Okay, so it could be how Netflix use your collected algorithms to sort of make new shows. Okay, how it guides influencers to what they're going to produce on Instagram for you. Okay, but also, there's loads of, cookies that you sign up for when you go onto various websites. Okay, so these are various external things. Okay, we've also got management systems, like in schools we have SIMs. Okay, or that do registers or just keep information about students. That helps us make decisions on where we're going to put various funds for different students into, and so on. Okay, and then there's also sort of internal things like historical financial information. Okay, to see how that's going to help guide decisions on what the business is going to do in the future. Okay, so there's a lot of information that business can gather, big data that they can gather in order to analyze whether the decision they're going to do is right. Okay, so investment appraisal, it's all been taken out. Okay, and that brings us on to the final section, which is special orders. Okay, special orders won't take too long. So what I will do is I will begin session 3 by sort of quickly going through special orders. Thanks for listening, guys. Okay, hopefully you got a lot out of that session. It was quite meaty, a lot of stuff to cover. Okay, but thank you very much.